The question nobody in Washington thought they'd be asking is this: is Britain betraying its closest ally, or simply playing the smartest game in a dangerous world? Imagine this: Donald Trump, back in power, is calling on NATO allies to launch the biggest trade offensive in decades, a 50 to 100% tariff blitz on China, a move he swears will break Beijing's grip over Russia and end the war in. His words are blunt, fiery, and impossible to ignore. On Truth Social, he declared, China has a strong control and even grip over Russia. These powerful tariffs will break that grip. NATO as a group placing 50% to 100% tariffs on China to be fully withdrawn after the war with Russia and is ended, will also be of great help in ending this deadly but ridiculous war. In Trump's world, tariffs are not just about trade, they are weapons of war. But here's the shocker. Just as Trump is urging confrontation, Britain is choosing cooperation. While the US pounds the table demanding tariffs, London quietly resumed high-level trade talks with Beijing after a 7-year freeze. The optics couldn't be more explosive. Washington insists on war footing, London pushes for diplomacy. So is this betrayal of an ally, or is Britain playing chess while America plays checkers? UK Business Secretary Peter Kyle flew to Beijing this week and co-chaired the Joint Economic and Trade Commission with Chinese Vice Premier Heang. The reception? Warm, even celebratory. It was the first meeting of its kind in nearly a decade, and it signaled that Britain is no longer willing to treat China as an untouchable adversary. Both sides want to ease frictions, boost investment, and open doors for British firms. On the spot, the UK flagged £1 billion in new trade opportunities and projected another £2 billion of growth over the next 5 years. Prime Minister Keir Starmer even sent a personal letter that was read aloud at China's major international trade fair, reinforcing that this new phase of engagement is not just talk, it's a policy shift. Kyle summed it up in one line: serious and strategic engagement with the world's foremost economic players is what delivers for working people. In other words, Britain isn't picking sides, it's picking prosperity. But how do you think Trump will see it? Already furious about allies not pulling their weight on defense spending, now he sees London reopening doors with Beijing while he pushes for tariffs designed to choke China's economy. Is this pragmatism, or defiance dressed as diplomacy? What makes this moment even more fascinating is that Britain is not just testing the waters, it's going all in. Alongside trade talks, the two sides reactivated the industrial cooperation dialogue. That might sound technical, but it's huge. It covers industrial decarbonization, the digital economy, and even automotive standards. These are the rulebooks of the future economy, and Britain wants to write them with China rather than watch from the sidelines. Even more telling, discussions of a full state visit to Beijing early next year are already underway. That's right, a British Prime Minister potentially shaking hands with Chinese leaders at a time when Trump wants NATO to lock arms against Beijing. So let's ask the real question: why now? Why would London risk angering Washington? The answer lies in one word: interests. British officials have been blunt. They say Britain must follow permanent interests, not permanent friends or enemies. That means foreign policy is guided not by loyalty to Washington, but by what helps Britain's economy. And if China offers billions in trade opportunities, market access for exporters, and cooperation in sectors like healthcare and automotive, London won't walk away just because Trump says so. And yet here's the twist. Even as Trump pushes NATO to escalate against Beijing, his own administration has quietly been softening its stance. In June, US officials resumed trade talks with China, securing commitments on rare earth exports and extending a tariff truce. Trump himself admitted, "We are doing well with China. China's not easy." And just as London and Beijing sat down, US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Chinese Vice Premier Heang were also sitting down in Madrid. This was the fourth major round of talks in just a few months, following earlier sessions in Stockholm, London, and Geneva. So while Trump talks tough for the cameras, behind closed doors Washington is negotiating. Does that make Britain's move look reckless? Or does it make Trump's rhetoric look hollow? But the timing couldn't be more awkward. Just before the Madrid talks opened, Beijing launched investigations into the US semiconductor sector, accusing Washington of dumping analog chips and discriminating with its export controls. Meanwhile, the US added 23 more Chinese companies to its blacklist and still has tariffs on more than half of Chinese imports. Both sides are playing hardball even while shaking hands. That's the tightrope London is watching and maybe learning from. Now let's turn to Trump's upcoming state visit to Britain. September 16th to 18th, he arrives in a country that has justified his biggest demand on China. How will that play out? On the one hand, the UK is preparing to roll out the red carpet. US firms have pledged over £1.25 billion in investment, creating thousands of jobs in Belfast, Manchester, and Edinburgh. A massive technology agreement covering AI, semiconductors, telecoms, and quantum computing is also expected. Britain wants American money and tech, but not American trade wars. That's the balance. But balance is fragile. Just days before Trump's arrival, London saw one of the largest far-right rallies in years. Over 100,000 people gathered under the banner, Unite the Kingdom, organized by Tommy Robinson. The protests spiraled into scuffles with police, and then came the bombshell, Elon Musk appearing live by video link. He told the crowd, "You either fight back or you die." That message, landing days before Trump touches down, feels almost scripted for maximum political drama. Critics argue it was an echo of Trump-aligned populism imported straight into British politics. So Trump is walking into not just a diplomatic balancing act, but a domestic storm. Now think about the risk London is taking. If Britain resists Trump too openly, it could lose leverage in trade and defense negotiations with Washington. If it follows him too rigidly, it risks its access to Chinese markets and could destabilize already fragile supply chains. British exporters have already felt the pain of US tariffs. A 10% tariff on British goods earlier this year hammered manufacturing, and UK firms were bracing for worse. Instead of retaliating, London tried quiet diplomacy, and it worked. Britain secured an exemption from steeper US tariffs on steel and aluminum. That deal, part of the UK-US Economic Prosperity Framework, allows tariffs to be lifted if British steel avoids Chinese input. Pragmatism, not confrontation, delivered results. This is the strategy Britain is applying again with China. Stay calm, avoid retaliation, find the angle that delivers growth. But here's the cliffhanger: can this balancing act last? With Trump demanding confrontation, and Beijing demanding loyalty in exchange for cooperation, how long before Britain is forced to choose? To Washington, Britain's move may look like betrayal. To Europe, it looks like pragmatic hedging. To British policymakers, it looks like survival. And that's the heart of the story. Britain is betting that it can ride both horses at once, take US money and jobs, while reopening trade with China. Will that gamble pay off, or will it leave Britain isolated from both sides? And let's not forget the global context. NATO is fractured. Russia's war in Ukraine drags on. China's shadow looms over every economic decision. In this environment, even the smallest shift in alliances can change the balance of power. If Britain can show that it's possible to engage China while still cooperating with the US, others in Europe might follow. If it fails, Britain risks being seen as unreliable by Washington and naive by Beijing. So I'll leave you with this. Britain stands at a crossroads. Donald Trump wants tariffs as weapons. Britain wants trade as insurance. The question is, whose vision will prevail? Is Britain betraying an ally, or showing the world how to survive in an age of superpower rivalry? Now I want to hear from you. Do you think Britain is right to prioritize its economy over Trump's tariff war? Should London risk angering Washington to secure billions in new trade with China? Or is this strategy too dangerous, risking both US trust and Chinese patience? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one of them, and your perspective shapes this conversation. Before you go, hit that like button if you found this analysis valuable, and make sure you subscribe to the channel. It's your support that lets us keep breaking down the biggest shifts in global trade, politics, and power without the spin. And don't forget to share this video, because what's happening between London, Washington, and Beijing today could decide the balance of tomorrow's world.